1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 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 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Check. Check. 1, 2.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say thank you guys to all the staff and all the students for inviting me. My name is Matt Dunklin. I'm with the state of Florida's Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Do we have all barbers in here? All barbers in here? Okay, so we're going to go over the DBPR's inspection program. It's our barber cosmetology inspection program. But first, um, not a very formal guy, so if a question comes up in the middle of my presentation, feel free to raise your hand, and I'd be happy to call on it. I find that's when we have kind of the best discussions. But secondly, does anybody here know who the Florida DBPR is? So the Florida DBPR is, not only do we regulate the barber cosmetology industry, but we're the largest licensing agency in the state of Florida. So we regulate professional industries like construction, real estate, veterinarians, talent agents, community association managers. Like I said, we're kind of like the most known unknown agency in the state of Florida. So, but today I'm specifically here to talk to you guys about our barber and cosmetology inspection program. So our inspection program's mission statement is to ensure the health and safety and welfare of the consuming public is protected by inspecting every licensed barber, cosmetology, and veterinary establishment, to ensure safety and sanitation requirements, that these establishments are adhered to, and that those practicing these professions are duly licensed, and that they actively seek out unlicensed activity related to these professions. And this is accomplished through a regulated inspection process by performing the statutory mandated and complaint-driven inspections of establishments licensed by the Board of Cosmetology, the Barbers Board, and the Veterinarians Board. So the objectives of our inspection program, and for those of you who don't know, we inspect on a biannual basis. So every other year, you're going to see one of our inspectors in a barbershop you work at or you own. Whether that's a barbershop, cosmetology establishment, nail salon. So the objectives of this is the public health and safety by regulating sanitation issues with the practice of cosmetology and barbering. So what we do is we like to educate students and employers, kind of like what we're doing here, and the general public to help them understand the Florida statutes and kind of what we do and what's required of barber and cosmetology salons. And we ensure instructions on communicable diseases, as well as ensuring that the license requirements for the specific regulated industries are met. So what do we look for when we go out to an inspection? That's kind of the gist of what I'm here to talk to you guys about, because you guys are all future barbers in this room, and there's some cosmetologists online. I just kind of want to let you guys know who we are and what we do. That way when you guys come into the shop, you're not running out the back door, scared of us, thinking we have white gloves, coming to see if there's dust on your guys' station and stuff like that. So we do check for dust, but okay. So what are we looking for? You know, we understand that you guys are working, right? We understand that this is an active barbershop. You guys are making money. There's customers coming and going. So we understand that when we walk in. So the rules may say that there's no hair on the floor, and that is true. There should not be accumulated hair on the floor. But we're not going to nitpick you when everything's right. If you're doing wrong, then by all means, we're going to come in there and we're going to go through this thing. But if there's something that we find, we're going to first try and correct it with you guys first. Like I said, we're people too. We understand that you guys are working. We're not here to impede your business or impede your way of making money. We just want to make sure that everything's safe and sanitary for the consuming public. So what we're looking for is we're making sure that the shop is clean and orderly and in compliance with Florida statutes. We want to make sure that everybody that's working there is properly licensed and that all their licenses are displayed for public view. One of the big things about not having the license displayed is we get these complaints. So somebody will come in, they get a bad haircut. All right, we don't regulate bad haircuts. If you get a bad haircut, that's on you. If you give a bad haircut, that's on you. We're not going to tag your license or anything because, you know, maybe you guys aren't as great at cutting hair, right? But what we will do is when we come in, or somebody will complain because they get a bad haircut and you don't have a license on the wall, what they're going to do is they're going to file a complaint with us and say that you're an unlicensed barber. And so we have to come out there and we have to check it out. So an unnecessary visit from us is going to cause you guys problems ultimately. And so simply by displaying your license on the wall cuts half the complaints that we get. And then lastly, we're looking to make sure that the sanitation methods are being practiced. The board required rules are being performed. So licensing requirements and display of your license. So all your licenses, cosmetology, the cosmetology salon, barbershop, specialist licenses, they all must be conspicuously displayed. So that's basically just a fancy word for saying it has to be in public view, right? So when I walk in, I shouldn't have to go, where is your license? I should be able to find your license just by scanning the walls and seeing it. So in each barber must be currently licensed, and that license got to be permanently laminated. So the reason why they do that is so people aren't taking pictures off of licenses and putting it on other people's licenses. And just a forewarning, as you know, we weren't started yesterday, so we know that people do that. There's a QR code on your guys' licenses that our inspectors can take their iPads if they're suspicious of it and scan it, and it will go right to your license page in our internal app, so we can tell if this is really assigned to you or not. And then thirdly, we need the most recent inspection conspicuously displayed as well. So that's for the consumer, that's for the public, that they come out there and they can say, hey, this person, this barbershop's above board, they've passed inspection, it's in plain view for everyone to see. And then for the cosmetology salons, we need a consumer protection notice at each foot bath. Okay, so barbershop requirements. So first and foremost, when we come out to your shop to do an inspection, especially if it's our first inspection, an initial inspection, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the shop actually meets the requirements of a barbershop. So this is all going to be pretty dry language, right? It's directly from the board rules. So I'm going to try and liven it up a little bit. All right, so a barbershop must contain at least a minimum of 100 square feet. So that's what you need to be licensed as barbershop. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen 100 square feet, but that's pretty small. That's to get licensed and have one barber working at a time. If you're going to add an additional barber, you need an additional 40 square feet for each barber. So all barbershops may contain less than 100 square feet of floor space if it complies with the requirements set above, except for the square footage requirements, and if it can be at least a minimum of 75 square feet, but then you got all these weird rules involved, right? So you can't have a barber, nobody else can work there, nobody else can be waiting, you can have one person at a time. So there's no waiting room in the barbershop. You can't advertise, and you can't have a phone number associated with the barbershop. So that's a weird rule where if you're going to have a 75 square foot barbershop, those are the rules for it. Most of the time, you guys aren't going to be working in a barbershop that's 75 square feet or 100 square feet. You're going to be working in a shop that's a little bit bigger. It's got multiple chairs. But just so you guys know, if any of you wish to branch out on your own at some point and open your own barbershop, it has to have a minimum of 100 square feet for yourself to work as a barber. Yes, sir. So yes, and I'll touch on that in a little bit later about the working from home. There is a provision in the statute in the last couple of years, I believe it was 2022, that provided an exemption for barbers and cosmetologists as long as there's no coloring being done. So just cutting hair, styling hair, arranging hair can be done outside of a licensed establishment. There is that provision. However, I do have a warning. It's towards the end of the slide here about unlicensed shops as well. So I'll go over that here in a little bit. Okay, so what are we looking for? We're looking for ventilation and cleanliness. So the moment we walk in, we're making sure this place is well ventilated. It's not smelling like weed. It's not smelling like nail supplies. It's not, dusty, dirty to the eye immediately. I tell all the new inspectors when you walk in, if you just kind of feel it. You walk in this place, you're like, this isn't clean. It's probably not. So the board rules say that each barbershop should be well ventilated, walls, ceilings, furniture, and equipment. It's got to be clean and free from dust and hair. Hair must not be allowed to accumulate on the floor of the barbershop. Hair must be deposited in a closed container. Okay, so, yes, sir. Yeah, that could be a lack of proper ventilation, and a lot of times when we have complaints like that, a lot of times these shops are not standalone shops, so they're in strip malls or they're renting a unit from somebody, so they can't really do a lot of renovations to the unit itself. What we would suggest in those situations is some sort of air purifier, maybe a way to keep the back door open and have some sort of air going through, but yeah, we see that a lot with nail salons. And then it's also a sign, too, if there's an extreme odor that they're using illegal nail product, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, animals. So this is a big thing, especially now. So the board rule says no animals or pets shall be permitted inside a barbershop with the exception of closed aquariums. So that's important. So not an open aquarium, not turtles, lizards. It's got to be a closed aquarium, so it's got fish in it. Or trained animals to assist in the hearing or visually impaired or the physically disabled. So this is kind of an old wives' tale, is that we can't ask is this a service animal or not? And that's not true. So we can ask, is this a service animal, and what does it do? What we can't ask is what your condition is. We can't get into your medical history and stuff like that. But the ADA only classifies 2 animals as service animals. So you have dogs and you have ponies, right? The miniature horses. Those are the only 2 animals that can actually be classified as a service animal. So if we go inside your barbershop and you got an emotional support lizard in there, it's not going to fly. We don't do that. You'll get cited for having an unauthorized animal in the shop. So that's one thing just to be aware of. I know a lot of people bring their animals to barbershops, especially if they're the owner or operator. They'll bring their dogs. Up in Pasco County, we just had a complaint about 2 months ago of a lady who had her pit bull inside, and I own pit bulls too, so I'm not saying that. It's she had her dog in there, and a customer brought her child in, and it was a 4-year-old child, and the child was unsupervised, so partly the mother's fault. Child was pulling on the dog's ear, and the dog snapped back at it, and I mean, it wasn't, it didn't kill the child, but a little snap bit the child in the face, and the child had a bunch of stitches in it. So that barbershop's going to be liable, and I don't know what we're going to do with the license. We had to do a full investigation, so we had investigators come out there, take statements, interviews. Animal control is involved, so you don't mess with all that. Don't bring your dogs to work. Leave them at home. Okay, so then each barbershop shall take reasonable steps to ensure that an individual service area, respectively, is maintained and operated in a safe and sanitary manner. So what that means is that each person, right, so it's not just the owner of the barbershop that's required to make sure that the area is clean. It's each individual barber who's working there. If you're working there, I mean, I get that you guys are probably paying a booth rent, but you're still a representative of that shop. So I see an attitude of a lot of barbers nowadays that are like, no, I'm paying rent to be here. I'm not an employee of this place. And okay, that may be true, but if you're representing that shop, you need to represent that shop to the best of its ability. The success of the shop directly correlates with your success and vice versa. So when you are working at a shop, make sure that it's on you guys too to make sure that the cleanliness is up to par. And also part of that is sanitizing equipment and things of that nature. So the disinfection procedures, and this is long and boring, and this is what you guys are being taught here in school. So all I'm going to say is that you guys need to know this, because if an inspector comes in and is going to ask you, how did you disinfect this? You need to have an appropriate answer that says, this is the steps that we've taken to disinfect this equipment here. And that includes your barbicide, making sure that your razors and your scissors and all that, everything is clean and functional. That it's cleansed by EPA or hospital grade equipment. So your barbicide. I can't give any brand names out there for you guys, but I'm sure your barber instructors could tell you which brands are the best to use. Okay, so after you disinfect and after you comply, this is really what. So one thing is, our inspectors, we do about 10 to 15 inspections a day. We're not going to stand over your shoulder and watch you disinfect something. That's to protect yourself, okay? Is that way you're not spreading any diseases or giving anybody any rashes or anything like that. Making sure that you guys are protected and in protecting yourself from complaints. What we are going to do is when we come in there, we're going to see the after product of your guys' cleaning and sanitation. And this is one thing it's really important, is to make sure you store your tools properly. I'm sure your teachers will probably harp on that, because I will say one of the big things we see is people just not properly storing their tools. Maybe they were sanitized, but you toss them in a drawer with a bunch of junk. We don't know that they're sanitized, and we're going to go under the assumption that they're dirty, that they're not sanitized. So make sure you clean them. The board rules say an ultraviolet ray sanitizing cabinet is preferred. To be honest with you, I don't see that a lot. It's sufficient enough just to make sure they're clean and dried and put away neatly. This is an example of an acceptable storage over here on the left. And then on the right is unacceptable storage. And I don't know if you guys in the back can see that, but I mean, the guy's got his Little Caesars coupon mixed in there with a bunch of receipts and a bunch of garbage. So. Yes, sir. Yep, exactly. Now, I have seen people working out of bags, and there's nothing in the statutes or the board rules that say you can't work out of bags. All I would suggest is if you are, I've seen the backpack, the barber backpack, or the rolling toolbox. I would just suggest that you just make sure that it's clean and maintained and it's orderly, so that if we come in there or an inspector comes in there and we see your backpack, that we can have you open it up and take a look at it, and everything's in its place. We got no problems with that. No problems. Yep. Yep. Yep, exactly. That's the best way to do it, is if it's all out in view, organized. If your station's organized, we're not gonna, like I said, we're not gonna come out there and just tear stuff apart. We're not. That's not what we're here to do. We're not trying to impede your guys' business by any means. If you guys got somebody that's cutting hair, what we'll do is we're gonna come by. We're gonna glance your station. We're gonna make sure your station's clean. We're gonna make sure that you got trash can lid. Your lids got your trash cans have lids. We're gonna make sure your license is posted. And if all those things are good, we probably won't even interact with you as an employee of the barbershop. As a manager, maybe a different story. We got to get you to sign some paperwork and stuff after the inspection. But as the employee, keep your station clean, keep your license on the wall. We're going to walk past you, no big deal. If we do find some sort of violation, we'll try to respectfully communicate with you while you got a client. We never really like to talk in front of clients or anything like that, but we'll pull you off the side and say, hey, you got some hair, you got some dust or whatever on your station. Can you clean that up before we're done? And then if you do, we just move on. We got no problems. We're not going to write you up any paperwork or anything. But I do have some pictures coming up next, actually, of some unsatisfactory storage, just like you were talking about. All right, so this, I don't know if you guys can see that back there, but this is actually from a nail salon. This is a drawer of a station, and the dust that's accumulated in here is unacceptable. It's disgusting, actually, but this was a working nail salon. There's actually a person at the station at this time, and the lady was going in and out of this drawer getting stuff, and that was not good. Okay, then this is a perfect example of an unsatisfactory storage in a barber setting. So you got your clippers back in here. You got all your neck strips that are all just thrown in, disorganized. If we see something like this, we're gonna either ask you to straighten it up and clean it up and start sanitizing this stuff, or we're gonna have to end up writing you a citation. So our citations go from, I believe they start at like $50, and they go all the way up to about $500 in the barber world. So it would really just depend on the violation. It would depend on the if it was your first offense or not. So we'd have different an escalation scale. So this is another one. I think it's kind of what you're talking about. This is a wooden one though, and I mean the amount of hair in here that's unacceptable. And people were in this barbershop and getting their hair cut, and I mean I don't know. I got a couple more photos from this barbershop to show you guys, but so one of the other things that we look for is we make sure that the place is free of trash, right? And it's unobstructed of trash, removal of excess hair from the floor, safe storage of flammable materials, and that all garbage containers must be in closed containers. That's a big violation that we get, is people just have open garbage containers hanging out in their shops. Yes. Yeah, so the board rules say any garbage can with inside the shop has to have a covering on it. So, you can just get one of the little tops that flip over. The barbershop I actually personally go to, they sweep the hair into this thing and it sucks it up into a vacuum. It's pretty cool, actually. And then one thing too about the hair. So it's the excess hair we're looking at, right? I mean, you guys are cutting hair. There's going to be hair on the floor. We all understand that. All the inspectors understand that. It's the accumulation of hair. That's what we're really looking for. It's when you didn't sweep up the hair 3, 4, 5 customers ago, and there's multiple colored hairs on the ground. That's what we're looking for. Or the accumulation of filth, right? So I don't know if you guys ever been to a barbershop that hasn't cleaned in days or maybe even weeks. I don't know if you guys know what that looks like, but it's pretty disgusting. So that's what we're looking for. Not a clean barbershop that's open and active, that they're actively cutting hair. Of course there's going to be hair in places. So just so you guys are aware. Yeah. But yeah, so then the garbage can. So this is a good example of non-satisfactory. So this garbage can right here, it's got an open lid on it. This is a barbershop that actually was doing facials in the back. And this is the facial table back here, and they got wax in the corner over there. But you got customers, not only are they getting their facials done with an open garbage can right there with a guy's ramen noodles who he just had for lunch sitting in it, but they have to come and go from there. So they see that when they're walking in and when they're leaving their facial spa, their facial. So it's also a professional thing. I mean, you don't want your dirty garbage just sitting next to your station and having a customer come in and seeing what you ate for lunch. You know what I mean? So okay, this is a picture that we took at the same barbershop, and this is what I'm talking about, the accumulation of hair. Okay, this is a baseboard, and I don't know if you guys can see it back there, but the baseboard is basically covered in hair. That's not one haircut. That's not one day of not cleaning. This is an accumulation of hair and filth, and this is what we are looking for when we say that that's unacceptable. And then this is in between two stations at that same barbershop. Dust, hair, garbage, wires all tangled up. That's another example of a unsatisfactory cleaning job at this barbershop. And then this right here. So this is the lollipops for the kids. This is at the station. You want to make sure your station's clean, obviously, right? Hair just all in the lollipops. Hair all underneath the station. That's unacceptable as well. The storage of your towels are important. So all towels have to be stored within a closed compartment. And the reason why that is to keep the germs out, to keep the dust out, so that way you have a fresh towel for each patron. The same barbershop there, this is their storage of towels, just sitting out in plain view. So that's unacceptable as well. So when we come into a barbershop and we see something like this is going to be a violation. Could you? So it's every other year. So normally we're on the biannual cycle, right? So every other year we're going to come in. If we come in and we fail the inspection, then what we're going to do is we're going to come back again for a second time. So that's within 30 to 60 days. We're going to come back unannounced and just see if the violations have been changed. If they haven't been fixed, we're going to come back again. The third time, if they haven't been fixed, we open a case, and then we write up a report, and we send it to our prosecutors up in Tallahassee. It's called the Office of General Counsel. And they're going to ultimately decide whether or not that license either gets suspended, they have the ability to revoke it, or a fine's imposed. So it just depends on the violation. But if we fail it, we're going to come back at least 2 times. Okay, so lastly, in what we're looking for in the inspection, we've gone through the cleanliness, we've gone through the sanitation process, we've gone through the licensure, make sure everybody's licensed, properly licensed. The last thing we look for is, and I hate to say it, but it has to be said, is that you have an adequate toilet and sink on the facility, okay? And if you guys don't have one, it's got to be within the building. It's got to be 300 feet from the barbershop. So say like in a mall setting or in a flea market setting where you may not have a restroom right in the shop itself. It can be 300 feet from the shop, but you have to have a working one. And lastly, that's the same barbershop you guys have been looking at. This is their bathroom, and this is their sink. And if you think your barber is washing his hands after he goes to the bathroom, you are surprised. All right. So, yes, sir. It does, yes. It has both hot and cold running water in it, and we do test it. So when we go in, we'll check the hot water. Yes, there has to be a shampoo bowl in every barbershop. I know that barbers will tuck it in a corner in the back room somewhere to try and be in compliance, and Maybe the inspector passes it, maybe it doesn't, but the board rules say it has to be in the service area of where the where the service is being done. I think just one. Yeah, just one for the barbershop. Yeah. Okay. Anybody got any questions about barbershop requirements or what we're looking for before I move on to the cosmetology pedicure? Okay. So I'm just going to briefly go over what we're looking for on the pedicure side. I know we got no cosmetologists here, but we have some online. So this is for your pedicure and your nails. So we're going to make sure that you guys, after each client, that you guys are disinfecting the pedicure station. And at the end of the day, there's a whole routine that you're going to have to go through. And then also at the end of each week. And how, like I said, we're not going to stand over your shoulder and watch you decontaminate it or clean it. But one thing we do look for is that you guys have a log book. So a pedicure log book. If we go in there and it's not up to date, you get some paperwork from us. It could be either a notice of non-compliance or a citation. It depends on the severity of the violation, but I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But the log book really is to protect yourselves. So if we get a complaint, like I said, we don't regulate bad services. So if somebody says that they don't like their haircut or they don't like their nails, there's nothing we can really do about that. Same thing as if somebody gets an infection. So like, let's just say somebody says, hey, I got an infection from this pedicure or from this haircut I did, and we go there and do an inspection. If everything is tip top, there's no evidence that you've gotten that infection from those services. Even medical professionals can't, with 100% certainty, say, yes, they got this infection from this haircut. We don't know if you went and swam in a retention pond after you got your haircut. We don't know what happened. So what we do is we come and we get the complaint that they got this infection, and then we go and do an inspection. And if the inspection passes, then really there's nothing we can do. But if it fails, then it leads us to believe that maybe they did contract something there. So the pedicure logbook is super important for cosmetologists and for nail specialists because it really protects you. I'd say the most complaints of infections we get is from pedicures and things of that nature. So when we go in there and we see a logbook and it's up to date, that's pretty much it. Case closed for us. There's not really much we can do. So these are a couple pictures we have of some improper disinfections, and I don't know if anybody here, any of the ladies here had their pedicures and all that, but we'll pop open these nozzles here, and this one on the right, it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. It's been around since I think 2008, but the barnacles on it really show you, the lack of cleanliness, and so that's things that we're looking for, and just making sure customers aren't sticking their feet in that. Over here's another example of improper disinfection. This one's looks like toe jam and stuff in there. I'm not sure, but the reason why, like I said, it's important is because you get that complaint, and if we come there and there's nothing, then there's nothing. But if there is, then people can get financially can get in a lot of trouble. And one of the cases that we did work, it led to a $1.75 million lawsuit settlement from a cosmetologist who gave a woman a pedicure. She was diabetic and didn't follow the proper procedures and didn't do a logbook, had no records of cleanliness, and ultimately it was a $1.7 million settlement. I don't know about you, but that would probably ruin me and a small business. So it's really important just to make sure that you do all the little things. They add up. That way, if something big happens, you can say, no, I follow the rules, and here's my proof that I do that. Yes. Can you repeat the last part? For licensure wise, yes, but reputation wise, maybe not. It just depends on how that shakes out. I don't know what exactly we did to this person, license wise, but I doubt we would have taken her license from her if they were cooperative with things happen, obviously. things happen. So, but reputational wise, I doubt it. I mean, I doubt you want to go get a pedicure from somebody who caused a lady to lose her foot. So, okay, so methyl methacrylate. Does anybody here know what MMA is? Not the fighting sport, but the chemical. You know what MMA is? Okay, perfect. So MMA is methyl methacrylate. So when you go to a nail salon, and one thing I'm seeing a lot is a lot of barbershops are now incorporating nail salons together. We're kind of seeing that trend, especially kind of in the southern counties like Manatee, Sarasota area. So I wanted to make sure I included this as well. So MMA is actually illegal in the state of Florida. It's a volatile and highly flammable monomer that's used mostly in like horse dentistry, or it's used in surgical procedures as like a cementing and a bonding, where like if they're gonna cement metal on bone, like in hip replacements and stuff, they use this monomer. That's what it's used for. Now, it is way cheaper than EMA, which is what you use for your acrylic nails. Okay, it's about half the price, double the amount. So you'll see a lot in these strip mall nail salons, the people that are skimming, they'll go and then they'll just buy this MMA, this substance, but it's actually quite dangerous. If you've ever had a nail done with MMA or nails done with MMA, you would know a lot of people describe it as kind of a burning, an itching sensation under the nail bed. One of the problems is that it's so strong is that it almost can't be removed; it has to be filed off. I've seen where it'll actually lift people's nail beds up. So it's a pretty dangerous chemical. I think it's banned in like almost all 50 states at this point in time for cosmetology use. And if anybody's squeamish, I got a couple photos of some complaints we had. So, so in the state of Florida, it is actually a misdemeanor to possess it. So what we do is we have all of our inspectors actually have a testing kit. We do a chain of evidence. So if we come across some material, liquid that we think may possess MMA, we'll actually take a sample of it. We put it in a vial, and we actually send it to a lab. And the lab will tell us whether or not it's got MMA in it. If it's got 0.01% of MMA in it, it's a misdemeanor in the state of Florida. And we do refer those over to the state attorney's office, and we do get criminal prosecution on those a lot, actually. So if you guys have anybody that's a nail technician or you know anybody, just, make sure that they know what MMA is, because good nail technicians may work at a place that might supply this, and they might not even know it. And so it's important because, like I said, it's a misdemeanor violation in the state of Florida. All right, so this is a picture of somebody who's gotten their nails done with MMA, and it's not very, very clear here, but if you can see the redness and swelling around the fingernails, that can happen. That can happen a lot. And then this is actually a photo that was submitted to us, and it's somebody who actually lost their nail because of the MMA. It actually lifted the nail bed off, and they completely lost the entire nail. Okay, so moving on from that, I want to talk about general kind of licensure things for you guys. So criminal self-reporting. I really wanted to make sure I added this slide in here. Hey, we all make mistakes, right? Things happen. People get DUIs. Stuff happens. When you guys get licensed, so first of all, when you get licensed, you're going to have to report any criminal convictions, not charges, convictions that you guys have had, regardless of adjudication. So any withholds or anything like that. Don't worry. I've seen literally people who've killed people get licenses. So there's not really much that you could do other than probably some, violent stuff that would preclude you from a license. But when you are licensed, if you do get criminally convicted of something, a DUI or something like that, you're required to report it to the department within 30 days of the conviction. I see a lot that happens in the barber and cosmetology industry. Maybe somebody goes out a night on the town, gets a little drunk, gets into a fight or something, and then they get some sort of assault or whatever, and then they get a withhold, and they think that everything is good, and then they don't report it, and then 6 years down the line, something happens, and somebody with the agency finds out about it, and then they get a case opened against them. It has to go in front of the barber's board. You got to show up in front of the barber's board. You're getting grilled on something you did 6 years ago. So just forewarning, if anything were to happen, I hope it doesn't happen to any of you guys, but if anything were to happen in the future where you get a criminal charge and you get convicted, just make sure that you guys go to our website. It's myfloridalicense.com. You can go to I think it might be in your portal as well. And you find this document right here. It's a criminal self-reporting document. Pretty easy. You fill it out. You send it to us. we put it on file. It'll go in front of the board if it's, like I said, the violent charge or something like that. Then they'll review it and address it accordingly. But most of the time I see people, it's just filed away. So, okay, so I'm going to talk about, we talked about what we look for in the barbershops and the cosmetology salons that we go and inspect. And I mentioned a couple things, notice of noncompliances and citations. So I'm going to kind of go over what we do here in our Tampa office and kind of the real boots on the ground stuff that you guys are gonna see from us. Well, hopefully not, but that if you guys commit any violations or something that you may see from us. So our office, I'm the investigative supervisor, so we oversee the 5-county region here. We have 6 investigators and we have 3 full-time inspectors for this area. So our inspectors are fairly busy. They're doing about 10 to 15 inspections a day. So like I said, we're not drilling down on you guys. We're making sure everything's up to the minimum standard, and then we're moving on. But if we do find a violation when we get into one of these shops, what we do is we have three different ways we can handle it. So we have what's called a notice of non-compliance. That's your lowest. It's essentially a warning letter. That's for things like failing to display your license for your first offense. That's not updating your address in DBPR records. That's failing to display consumer protection notices. Things of that. Small, inconsequential violations we can handle on a first time with what's called a notice of non-compliance. Most of the time we don't get there because if we're respectful, if we're both respectful of each other, I can just say, hey, can you take care of this? Can you go laminate your license today? Send me an email and we'll forget about the whole thing. If we got other problems going on, then what we'll do is we'll issue what's called a notice of non-compliance. So it gives you 15 days to come into compliance. If you don't come into compliance, then what we'll do is we'll issue a citation on top of that. So the second level is a citation. So that's going to be your unlicensed, your multiple offenses. If we've come in there multiple times and you haven't had, we've given you an NNC because you haven't got your license laminated, and we come back in and it's not laminated again, you're getting a citation. That's for having a delinquent license. That's for employing unlicensed people. Citation's kind of the main line there. Now, if we come into 4 or more violations while we're doing an inspection, we can't solve that by NNCs or citations. So we're required to open a case, and then that case doesn't go to the inspector. It gets assigned to an investigator. And then you got an investigator coming into your shop, interviewing you, asking you questions, and then we're writing up an investigative report, and then we're sending that to our Office of General Counsel. Like I said before, there are prosecutors up in Tallahassee. They present the cases in front of the Barbers Board. So if you guys are, say, caught employing, you say you own your own barbershop and you're caught employing an unlicensed barber. And so let's say that there's a couple other violations in there. We can't issue a citation for that because you've got 3 other violations. Say, you're not laminating your license and it's a little bit dirty and whatever. You don't have a consumer protection notice. So we're going to have to send that to an investigator, and they're going to do an investigation. They're going to write up that report. It's a comprehensive investigative report, and we're going to send it to our prosecutors. Our prosecutors are going to determine whether or not there's probable cause that a violation occurred. If they do determine that, then they issue what's called an administrative complaint. So that's formal charges. So that means you're formally charged with a violation of state statute in an administrative realm. At that point in time, you have an election of rights. You can dispute the material fact of it and go in front of what's called DOA, which is the Department of Administrative Hearings. At that point in time, it's going to be like you see on TV. It's going to be like a trial, essentially, an administrative trial. We have our prosecutors sitting on one side. It's you and hopefully your attorney sitting on the other side, and there's an administrative law judge in the middle, and they state their case, you state your defense, and then the judge decides whether or not you're in violation. So that's the highest level of violation you can get, right? Is getting the administrative complaint and going to the Department of Administrative Hearings. Now let's just say that judge rules in favor of the department, you get issued what's called a final order by the board. So the Barbers or Cosmetology Board, the respective boards will see the complaint, the administrative complaint, and then they'll issue what's called a final order, which is which is your sentencing essentially in the administrative realm. So your final order could say continuing education plus a fine, could say suspension, it could say revocation. It just depends on the violation, depends on what the barber's board decides. Yes, sir. The length of time an unlicensed barber can be. So if we come there and there is an unlicensed barber in there, we're citing the barber and we're citing the owner of the shop. So yeah, you can't cut hair in a barber shop or cosmetology salon unless you're duly licensed as a barber or cosmetologist. There is one exemption in the barber's board which says if you've taken your test and you failed your test and then you've rescheduled the test and post the failed test on the wall, I think you have 30 days or something like that. 180 days that you can cut hair in there. That's okay. Yep. So that is only for barbers. Most of the time we don't see that. Most of the time you see people who have failed the test and then they just go act as an unlicensed barber and then they try to say no, this is the exemption. And you gotta meet so much criteria to be able to do that. But that's only in barber, so it's not in the cosmetology side of things. Yes, sir. Exactly. Until you take it and pass it, or you take it and fail it and then reschedule the test. No. So the statute says that you can only do it unless you're duly licensed or you failed the test and you've retaken it and you've posted the other one. So. Okay, so yeah, so then like I said, the barber's board. I'm sure you guys are you guys familiar with the barber's board? It's made up of essentially a bunch of barbers. So if a case gets brought up there from our department, it's not a bunch of stuffy attorneys that are saying, hey, this person did X, Y, and Z, and we don't know anything about the barbering industry. Because to be honest, I'm not a barber. I don't know how to cut hair. I'm not a businessman. I don't know how to run a business. So ultimately, you guys are going to get reviewed by essentially a jury of your peers. These people are all licensed barbers. Most of them own their own businesses. They understand how all this works. So if it goes to the barber's board, just know that. Just know that it's a bunch of barbers who are reviewing this. So essentially it's a jury of your peers. All right, so unlicensed activity enforcement. To be honest with you guys, unlicensed barbering is the biggest violation that we get in the barbering industry. So tons and tons of people, I'm sure every single one of you knows somebody who's working in a shop right now without a license. In the state of Florida, barbering without a license is actually a misdemeanor. So it's actually Florida Statutes 476-194. So owning or operating in an unlicensed barbershop, owning the unlicensed barbershop, being unlicensed yourself, or employing unlicensed people, it's all a violation of Florida state statute, and if you're guilty of that, it's a misdemeanor of the second degree in the state of Florida. And part of what we do when we do our investigations is we're required, if we come across a crime during our investigation as state investigators, we're not sworn, so we can't come and put handcuffs on you. But what we are required to do by state statute is we're required to refer that to the state attorney's office. So it'd be the 6th Judicial Circuit here over on 49th Street. That's where this one is. We're over there all the time. I mean, we get tons and tons of unlicensed barbers, other professions as well. But we're over there all the time. I probably go to trial once a month in my capacity as investigator supervisor. So that's just a warning there. If you guys get caught cutting hair, you're not only going to get a citation from us, but you guys are going to get referred to the state attorney's office and probably get some sort of criminal prosecution. From what I've seen, it's usually about, if you have no other priors or anything, it's usually about 6 months probation. And then you got to write a letter to a judge about why licensing laws are good in the state of Florida. So that sucks. You don't want to do that. So just make sure you guys are all doing the right thing. You're here to get a license. So make sure you guys stick with that. If you guys got any friends out there that are not doing it the right way, urge them, because we are out there and like I said, we do find a lot of unlicensed people. Yes.
What happens if you get caught more than?
Well, Okay, so in the construction industry, if you get a second conviction, it's a felony. Unfortunately, in the barber industry, it's not. It's just a misdemeanor each time. But it'd be like you driving without a license each time. I mean, the judge eventually is going to say, yes, yeah. So yeah, essentially, the administrative fine would get higher, but the criminal penalty would still be the same. It's still a misdemeanor. Yep. And just, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? That's one thing too. Is so if you get administratively charged with unlicensed contracting, you're gonna have to, before you get your license with us, you're gonna have to pay that fine. And then if you're criminally convicted of it, on your application, you're gonna have to disclose that you're criminally convicted. Um, what I can tell you is it's not going to preclude you from getting a license, but you're going to have to go in front of the board and you're going to have to explain yourself, and it's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, like I said, it's a jury of your guys' peers, but it's going to be uncomfortable to present and say, hey, I was in school, but I needed to make ends meet, and so I ended up getting caught, and then I got to do all this and that. And so I've seen where they'll, especially if you have a criminal charge as well, they'll give you a license, but they'll put that license on probation, and they'll make it concurrent with your criminal probation that you're on. So I've seen people get their licenses and then have to then be on probation. So to get their license, then they got to be on probation with that license for 6 months until their criminal probation's over. So it just depends on the incident. So not necessarily saying like if you got like a DUI or something and you're on probation, maybe not. But unlicensed barbering, yes, because it's a direct effect of the industry you're applying for. Does that make sense? Yes, yeah, that does happen a lot. Yes, yep, exactly. And then you just got to meet in front of the barber's board. I think it depends on what the barber's board, what order they issue. You may have to meet with them every 6 months or so until you're, yeah, make sure that you're if you're make sure that you don't violate your criminal probation. So that's what I think, that's essentially that's what they're wanting to do. So our unlicensed activity enforcement. So our mission is obviously to make sure that there's no unlicensed activity in any of the professions that we regulate. We do that by going out there and trying to educate the public on hiring only licensed people. So we do a lot of public forward outreaches where we have literature and stuff that we'll give them and just let them know that, hey, when you guys go into these barber and cosmetology shops, this is what you're supposed to look for. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that. We come out and we talk to different students of different technical colleges and different barber colleges just to let them know. Um, in reporting on licensed activity, I know being a snitch isn't cool in this day and age, but you guys, I personally have a high respect for the barbering industry in the state of Florida. I feel like the people that are unlicensed that are out there just doing the work, people think there's no victim to this, there's no harm, there's no foul. That's one thing that we deal with sometimes with state attorneys. They say there's no victim here, and I'm of the opinion that you guys are the victims, right? The ones that spent the money. I mean, it's not cheap to go to barber school. I know that. And the guys that spent the money and the time, it's really the time that to get your guys' license. That's really important. And the industry gets diluted when there's unlicensed barbers out there. They may be really good at cutting hair, but they're not licensed, they're not regulated. So that's just something I kind of want to relay to you guys, is that just make sure you guys hold your industry uh, in high regard, because barbering really is it's one of those old time industries that I just there's a lot of respect for. It's public facing. You guys have clients. Your clients become your friends. You guys have a really good relationship with the community. So I just really urge that you guys urge anybody that you may know that may be cutting hair without a license just to go through the process and just get their license and do it right. So, yes, sir. Well, the current climate that we're in is a deregulation climate. Just be honest with you guys. I don't know if I'm sure you guys are familiar. You guys have been around for a while. We used to have what's called body wrapping licenses and hair braiding licenses, and then I think 2018, 2019, the state of Florida did something called a deregathon, where they just nope, cutting licenses. And I always hear about the barbering industry that they're going to do that. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. It's got its own community to it, and its own lobbyists. So I think that the barbering community doesn't want to be deregulated. I think that they stand out. You have a license, that makes you stand out from the crowd of unlicensed people. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of unlicensed barbers out there. We're not ignorant to that. I mean, I do it every single day. So the fact that you're a licensed barber means you stand out from the group of unlicensed barbers. So when it comes, if it shows that you guys have taken the time, that you have the training, and that you have not only the training but the dedication to even go through a 10-month program or something now. 10-month, that's a long time in you guys' life, where all you guys could just be cutting hair right now. And yep, yeah, exactly. They don't know the small details that you guys know about the industry, about the profession. I mean, they may be able to cut hair good, but can they run a business? Can they work in a barber shop? I mean, just because you can cut hair doesn't mean that you're a barber. To me, a barber is somebody who knows how to manage their time. They know how to keep a station clean. They know how to run a business, whether it's an entire barbershop or it's your own personal business. I mean, you guys got money coming in multiple different ways. You guys got to know how to pay taxes. You guys got to know how to do all this stuff. It's not just cutting hair. So to me, like I said, barbering, the industry, I hold that in very high regard. So I hope you guys do too. So to finish my spiel about not snitching and unlicensed activity and all that is, you guys can report unlicensed activity to us. I know it's not very popular, but you can do that, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can go on our website and do it. You can do it anonymously on ula@myfloridalicense.com. You can call, or you can download our DBPR mobile app, and there's a way to do that then. I suggest you guys all download the DBPR mobile app, because when you guys do get into the field and you guys start applying for jobs at different barbershops, you guys can go and just check the licensure real quick. Just make sure that the barbershop itself's licensed. That way you guys don't get jammed up in anything. If you guys become barbershop owners yourselves, you can use that mobile app to check the licenses of the people that you're going to be hiring, making sure that they're licensed. If you guys are hiring an air conditioning guy to come to your house, you can check them on our website, make sure they're licensed. Veterinarians, the list goes on. So I would suggest downloading that app. It's a pretty good tool. I actually personally have it on my phone as well. Okay, so I'm going to address actually something here that you brought up in the beginning. So cutting hair outside of a licensed establishment. All right. So this is the prohibited acts for the barber statutes, Florida Statutes 476, 194. And on here it says 1A is engaged in the practice of barbering without a license. So we already discussed that's a misdemeanor. But hire or employ any person to engage in barbering is also a misdemeanor. D says own, operate, maintain, open, establish, conduct, or have charge of, either alone or with another person or persons, a barbershop, one, which is not licensed, or two, which is permitting unlicensed barbers to practice. So that's something to look at too. So you will get in trouble if you hire somebody to work in your shop and they're not licensed. So what we do is we give them a citation and we give you a citation. Now, it says operating in a shop outside of the license. Now, in, I want to say 2023, they made this provision here, and it says barbering services to be performed in registered barbershops. Now, this has always existed where you could cut hair outside of a licensed barbershop for, say, a person who was physically unable to get to the shop, say they were in a hospital or a nursing home, you could always go to them in that situation and cut their hair as a barber. And for the cosmetologists that are listening, the same statute is mirrored in Florida Statutes 477. So it's the same thing. You've always been able to do that. So you've always been able to go out and somebody that can't get to the shop for a medical reason to go cut their hair or do their toenails or something like that. But you had to meet certain criteria, right? So you had to have the schedule booked through a licensed shop. You had to have some criteria that you met. But in 2023, they made this one line in here. It says, however, a barber may shampoo, cut, or arrange hair in a location other than a registered barbershop without such arrangements. So what they're saying here is that a barber now can cut hair outside of a licensed barbershop without having these arrangements up here that were previously done. Okay, so that's confusing, right? Because then people just start going wild and saying, I can cut hair wherever I want. I don't need a shop license. I don't need to work in a shop. I don't need anything like that. So what's confusing about that? Go ahead, you had a question? Well, so you can cut, what it says is you can cut. Barber may shampoo, cut, or arrange hair in a location other than a registered barbershop. So you could go to somebody's house and cut their hair, shampoo it, and style it. That's what it says there. So this is what's confusing about the statute, right? So this is an exemption to the statute. Those of you that aren't familiar with statutory language and the way it works and all that, this is an exemption. Now, one thing is they added this exemption, but they did not withdraw this provision here that says that you may not operate an unlicensed barbershop. So the way it was in the past is you had to cut hair within the 4 walls of a licensed establishment. If you were cutting hair on the sidewalk out front, that's technically a violation by state statute. So they provide this exemption. So what does it do? So this exemption essentially says that a barber can go out and cut hair. That's what it says. That's what you guys can do that. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't allow you to operate an unlicensed establishment. That's where people get confused. So Matt, as a barber, can go and cut hair at my friend's house. And for cosmetologists listening, cosmetologists can cut hair as well. They just can't color outside of a licensed cosmetology establishment. But so I can go and I can cut my friend's hair for money, whereas you couldn't do that in the past. What I can't do is start a Facebook page called Matt's Barbershop and advertise myself and have all these booking appointments, because now I'm acting as an unlicensed barbershop, right? So I'm having people come to my house. You can't do that. So the exemption is that you can cut hair outside of a licensed establishment, but it does not exempt you from a barbershop license. Does that make sense? Well, yes, you can. Yes, you can be a mobile barber. It's actually, there is no mobile barber license. So there's a mobile cosmetology salon license, which we see barbers get. You don't have to be a cosmetologist to own a cosmetology salon. So you'll see these barbers that get these mobile cosmetology licenses. There's a mobile cosmetology license. Yep. So if you want to be if you're a full specialist, you want to do like facials. Yeah, exactly. And if you have like a van or something that you want to like rig up to do facials in, you just get a mobile cosmetology license, and then you'd be good to go. Mm-hmm. Well, so the mobile is the establishment license. So it's not the person's license. It's the mobile cosmetology, which would be the van or something. We would license that as like a shop on wheels. But I think your question is is there a difference? So there is. So there's the in the cosmetology world. There's your cosmetology license, and then you have specialist license underneath that. So you have full specialists, you have nail specialists. So if you don't want to be a full cosmetologist and do 1,200 hours, if you want to just do facials, you can go. Is it 240 or for the full specialist, something like that? 500, yeah, 240 for nails, 500 for full specialist. So there's specialty. Whereas like you have your master barber license, we call it a BB because that's the letters that are in front of it, and then you have your restricted barber, which just doesn't allow you to use color and all that. So, yep. So all right, is that clear that you guys can cut hair once you're licensed? You can cut hair outside of a licensed establishment, but that doesn't preclude you from the statute of having an unlicensed barber shop. So if you're going to operate as a business name, you're still going to need a shop to be licensed. All right, that concludes my presentation. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. So you only need a barber license if you're cutting hair for compensation. Yes. For like if they're working in a salon suite. Okay, yes. Well, it depends on the salon suite itself. So the way that the opinion of the state is either there's one license for the whole salon suite that governs the whole suite, or there's either each individual suite has its own license. So it just depends on the salon suite itself and how they want to be liable, if they want to maintain the license or if they're going to make you guys have your own. If they don't have the license, then you do have to have your individual establishment license. Yes, sir. Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Mobile barbershops are a big thing. Like I said, they're mostly cosmetology establishments, although they'll call themselves a barbershop, which is totally fine. It's just, but yeah, we'll see that a lot. There's a lot of, especially in this I-4 corridor. So between Orlando and Tampa, there's tons and tons of mobile barbers. They get a nice van and they rig it out for a barbershop, and it's pretty good. Yep. So the barber board has not given provisions for a mobile barber's license as of yet. So there is a mobile cosmetology license. So what we see is we see a lot of barbers go get a mobile cosmetology license, and they'll call it, say, Matt's Barbershop, Matt's Mobile Barbershop or something. Um, I believe the board rules say that a barbershop has to employ, or that a cosmetology salon has to at least employ at least one cosmetologist. I don't believe that that's so for the mobile shops, and if it is, the opinion of the department is that if a barber wants to become a mobile barber, that he would get a mobile cosmetology license. That would be okay. Now, one thing is that you have to, and this is kind of a silly board rule, and we were kind of laughing about it this morning actually, is if you have a mobile cosmetology license, you're required to provide the department with a list of places that you're going to be every month, which it's not very practical, let's just say it that way, but and a lot of people don't do it. But what we have to do is to inspect you, we still inspect you every other year. The problem is that now we don't know where you are, and we got to chase you down. So what we do in those situations is we try to communicate with the shop owners and try to get them to at least say, hey, I'm going to be in the Walmart parking lot between 12 and 2, so we can at least get there. Yeah, that's why we were laughing about it. It's kind of a silly rule of telling us where you're going to be because you may not know where you're going to be. I mean, like you said, so. Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's why we were laughing about the rule there. So, yes, sir. You had a question? The cost of the mobile, I'm not exactly sure of the cost. It's not too expensive. I believe it's somewhere similar to the cosmetology salon establishment. I think what is it, like 80 something dollars at this point in time? Not exactly sure. Don't quote me on that. It might be more expensive since the last time I checked. Yep. So when you guys apply with us, you're going to get a portal. So you're going to get your own DBPR portal, and that's how you're going to be able to maintain your licenses. So if you want to apply for a new license, then you just go into your portal and apply for a new license, and then just pick the drop-down menu, and it's going to be establishment, mobile shop, barber shop, whatever you guys want to do. Yep. Thank you. Guys, got any other questions? All right, well, I appreciate you guys listening to me. I appreciate what you guys are doing, that you guys are in school. Like I said, I really do hold the barbering and cosmetology industries in very, very high esteem. So I'm very glad that you guys are undertaking this. Thank you.